So Bree and I decided to do a breakout room together because our projects go very much hand in hand, both focusing on like a holistic health type of model. So we wanted to start with like a little quiz of sorts, kind of touching on, various points that we're going to emphasize within our own projects. Just kind of, giving you an introduction to the ideas that we're looking to really focus within our projects.
Rachel, you don't see anybody else? Like, it doesn't say to invite anybody else really fast, does it?
No, not for
Okay.
me. Oh, I did not do that correctly. We'll just go through some questions. We'll start with some focus around Bree's project, then kind of moving more towards cardiovascular health, and then we'll go into actually, description of what we'll be doing with each of our projects.
So overall, nutrition is the basic definition.
Can you put the pin back?
The pin's down here on the bottom corner as well.
Oh, that good. Thank you.
Yeah. Bree, do you want to explain any as we go, or are you going to wait till the end?
I can explain it. So nutrition overall here is just the process of obtaining the food that's necessary for good health and growth. So that's anything that allows your diet to be better or good in order so that your body can maintain proper bodily functions.
Okay.
So yeah, proteins do a lot for our body here. They are essential building blocks for our bones and our muscles in order for them to get stronger. They do help aid in digestion by producing enzymes, and enzymes allow the digestive system to move a little bit faster. And they also contain those amino acids that help with overall tissue repair. So anytime you're lifting and you get sore, the proteins are what helps that. So yes, our body has a lot of oils. Like there's a lot of fats that we actually need in our body. We already really know about saturated and unsaturated fats, but what some people don't know about are things like omega-3s, which are contained in fish oils, and those are fats that we really cannot produce on our own. So it's important to get that within our body in order for those vital things. So kind of as can be expected, a lot of times the biggest thing with fruits and vegetables is they are really, really high in fiber, so they fill your body up really fast. They have some nutrients that can help overall. Vegetables having a higher nutrient content than fruits, but overall they do fill your body up a lot faster, and so it causes your body to not be hungry all the time and not be as full, and so that lowers your caloric intake, which can help with heart disease and also obesity. So on this specifically, which is good because you got it right, my presentation is to younger kids, and so this is a really good way to explain what somebody's plate should look like, trying to make sure we have our greens and red and just a bunch of different colors and not just like the generic browns or yellows. This one's kind of a little bit self-explanatory. That just should be consumed daily. So. So this one is a little bit less than vegetables, only because fruits tend to have a lot higher sugar levels. Yes, it is healthy sugars still, but it's less than vegetables, and so we don't want to over consume too many fruits. And sometimes they can cause some of your body systems to function not as properly or like in a different way if you consume too many. So this is something to keep in mind when you're going to a steakhouse and it's like, do I want the 8 ounces or the 12 ounces? You should really only be consuming about anywhere from 5 to 6.5 each day. So maybe not going for that full 8 ounce or 12 ounce steak that day, especially if you've already had your protein. You don't need as much protein as we like to think, because in America, it's a big staple piece for all of our meals. It's the essential part. And so really, you can have a salad with maybe just a little bit of meat on it or a little bit of something on it, and you don't need to obtain so much protein in one single meal. So this one's tough because I did say best, and the way some of these questions are worded, it could lead you to think it might be all the above. But I did kind of try and make it a little trickier because some of these were a little bit easier. So overall, the reason it's this one is we eat so many foods that are like highly processed, contain certain types of butter and stuff like that. The biggest one here is your cholesterol levels, and it's clogging those arteries, which can increase your blood pressure. And so your blood has a hard time getting through your veins into your heart and to other functions within your body. But it really all starts with those cholesterol levels that create clogs in those major arteries. And so that's why it's really important to watch some of the things we eat and make sure our diet and nutrition is good. And this one's pretty self-explanatory towards the end. Proper diet really does leave you feeling energized and ready to go.
Sorry, I was peeking at the chat right there.
Good job. Yeah, diet is anything that you are eating and putting into your body, whether it's healthy or bad.
So now we're shifting more into some questions more geared towards my project. So basically, I'm looking to address the issue of cardiovascular disease through various modalities that I'll kind of talk about later. So kind of, the reasoning behind why this project is necessary then is cardiovascular disease, very similar to that of the United States, is the leading cause of death in Panama. Okay, so getting into, the functioning of the cardiovascular system. So main thing that people usually think of is the heart. So it's that very large muscle that is propelling blood throughout our cardiovascular system, throughout our body. So we have the heart, the means upon which the blood is then delivered through various blood vessels spread throughout our system, as well as then the blood, which transports the oxygen, nutrients, and then getting rid of CO2 and waste products throughout our body as well. Okay, so hypertension then is one of those primary markers of cardiovascular disease. So basically, this is what we would call high blood pressure. So basically, this would happen, for example, if you have plaque buildups in your arteries and veins, things like that, which basically makes your heart work harder to propel blood effectively throughout your system. So this is false. So it's kind of a misconception where people think, aerobic activity, so being defined as, prolonged physical activity. We usually use the baseline of about 30 minutes or more can improve cardiovascular health. And that is not true at all. Actually, some studies I found in my research have found that prolonged use of even anaerobic activities, of resistance exercise, things like yoga, which we'll talk about in the actual implementation of my project, can be just as effective in improving cardiovascular health and maintenance of cardiovascular health as these more intense aerobic activities. So in terms of, measures of these in our blood, basically these are each types of cholesterol. So if you've ever went to the doctor and gotten your blood drawn, you'd probably seen that you have levels of LDL and HDL. So basically LDL is what we consider to be our bad cholesterol. It can lead to things like clogging of arteries and such that we were talking about earlier. HDL, however, is kind of counterbalances that. So it's actually capable of removing some of these more harmful cholesterols from our system. So in talking about like a holistic health model and the mind-body connection, things like that, it's important also from a physiological standpoint because high levels of stress have been found to be capable of increasing levels of this low-density lipoprotein, again, bad cholesterol. So again, kind of tying in the form and function with anatomy and physiology with these mindfulness-based interventions. So, if you were to be prescribed certain types of exercise, the three components that you should be prescribed in are time, frequency, and intensity. Difficulty, kind of, you could go along with intensity, but that's more of like your perception, a subjective view of the activity, while intensity, for example, might look at like heart rate zones, amount of time between reps, things like that. So, say we could say, okay, you should be working out for 30 minutes a day at a moderate intensity 3 times a week. So just an idea of how we can prescribe this activity in giving people a little bit more of a guideline and how active you should be to assist in benefiting your cardiovascular health. So I'll just skip forward on that since you answered pretty quickly. So yoga can be used to facilitate practices of mindfulness-based intervention. So it's important to note that yoga itself isn't considered to be an MBI, but rather facilitation through things like deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, awareness of self, things like that, rather than saying yoga itself is a mindfulness-based intervention. It's more used as the vehicle upon which we reach these different statuses and things that we would wish to facilitate through this activity. Last question. So again, talking about a holistic health model, the mind-body connection and everything, we basically want to get to the point that being healthy is more important than just exercising. It's more important, or it's a wider scope than just exercising. It's a wider scope than just eating healthy or just reducing stress. Utilizing all of these things in conjunction with each other is where we are able to reach that higher level of holistic wellness, essentially. So for the rest of the session, we wanted to each take a few minutes to just explain kind of the inner workings of our projects. So again, my project, basically looking to stress the importance of positive practices for cardiovascular health, and then the implementation of those practices with our community partners. So again, kind of like we said in the Kahoot, just stressing the need for this project. So leading cause of death in Panama is ischemic heart disease, and with number 2 being cerebrovascular disease. So these can be marked by either biological or environmental risk factors. So biological, for example, if you have like a history of heart disease in your family, you are more likely to get it yourself. Males are by and large at a higher risk, for example, also of getting heart disease, as well as environmental risk factors. So this could be anything from stressors in your life to nutrition, availability of different foods, things like that. And then just another statistic in there, 28% of Panamanian deaths have been found to be tied back to cardiovascular diseases. So again, looking at this in a holistic manner, we also want to look at aspects of mental health. So suicide rates in Panama are about 5.6 per 100,000 deaths, as found by the World Health Organization in 2017, which seems pretty low compared to the United States, 12.6 per 100,000. However, if you delve deeper into this, the more concerning aspect is that number is 10.1 per 100,000 in men and just 1.1 per 100,000 in women. So we're definitely seeing a large gender discrepancy here. So what does this mean? More than likely high levels of stress, particularly in male populations, particularly in maybe rural areas. What are the availability of mental health services? And then also looking at some cultural implications. So they have that machismo culture where basically men are going to more than likely be less apt to go and seek out mental health services. So again, these are definitely concerns from a mental health standpoint as well. In terms of healthcare, the Panamanian system is, more developed than some other systems in Latin Central America, but still have their issues that need to be addressed more in depth. So 90% of Panamanians actually do have healthcare coverage in some way, shape, or form, which came out through a lot of reforms made in around 2010 with a more progressive government being implemented. However, with this, again, still stressing some of the issues that are found within the system. So 71.4% of Panamanians report that they still have difficulty getting medical care on evenings, weekends, or holidays without going to the emergency room. 35.1% report financial barriers, and then 90.8% report that it still needs fundamental change or complete rebuilding. So I found that last statistic to be quite alarming, even because, while we are seeing this by and large having access and coverage in healthcare, the citizens are still seeing a lot of need for reform. So knowing a lot of these things and assisting with holistic wellness could be really helpful in knowing signs and symptoms and things like that of poor cardiovascular health. So some impediments to lifestyle changes. There was a study done a few years ago by the World Health Organization where basically they identified some major constraints to physical activity development. So main things here: lack of awareness about benefits, insufficient data trends, lack of political commitment and support, which we have seen a shift in Panamanian government recently. Insufficient cooperation between concerned sectors, and inaccessibility. So again, goal of this project, increasing awareness, bridging that gap, and providing resources that cause inaccessibility. So basically bringing it to the hands of people so they don't have to go through all these hoops to access these modalities. Again, I'm using a holistic health model primarily through the mind-body connection. So mind-body connection focuses on mind, body, and spirit. And from a westernized medicine interpretation of this as well, like I was talking about earlier, the anatomy and physiology form following function idea. So basically what we're saying increased levels of stress are going to then go and affect different systems, kind of like it shows in this diagram over to your right. So really big thing with that are neurotransmitters, again, as shown in this as well. So main thing through yoga, studies have shown that yoga increases the secretion of our GABA neurotransmitter, which is known for reducing anxiety and things like that. So endorphins released through physical activity, focusing a lot on these mindfulness-based interventions and how they can assist us in obtaining, the highest level of holistic health as possible. Again, this can be used in a wide range of demographics as well, which makes it really helpful whether we're talking about children, young adults, adults, or elderly populations. We're trying to make activities that are accessible to all and can be adapted to fit their range of abilities, wants, and needs. So my past project, when I did get to travel as a sophomore, focused primarily on physical activity and education about heart health. So I did things ranging from anaerobic activities to like relay races and things like that, body weight exercises, and use of resistance exercises through TheraBands, which you can see there wrapped around my knee. So basically trying to make it clear that exercising can be fun, and what is the range of what you can do with the resources available to you, what are signs and symptoms of cardiovascular disease, and so on. So basically here then, so I can make sure I give Bree enough time to talk too, what I'll be doing this year, I'll be sending down through, again, like Professor Jacobs-Brown said earlier, the Panamanian school system is fully online for now in an even more extended period of time. So in our effort to making this as accessible as possible, a lot of us are sending, well, all of us are sending it through an online format. So I'm going to be posting these various videos to YouTube where I have part one, which is basically an introduction to heart health, which you can see over here. So basically just talking about various things from exercise, relaxation, nutrition, things you can do, signs and symptoms of cardiovascular disease, and so on. I'll then have a 3-part system of videos where I basically walk through different yoga poses and things that are geared towards children, but could also be used across a variety of populations. So I have 2 videos that you do individually, and then a group yoga where you're using your partner to help with certain poses. So again, the goal of these projects is reducing the perception of barriers to participation in physical activity, so making these resources readily available and reducing some of those impediments to starting physical activity, as well as then hopefully aiding at least in relaxation and the reduction of stress. Oh, I don't want to play that right now. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen so Bree can hop on then and explain some of her project as well.
And that means I'm going to start sharing my screen. So if you guys can't see it after I hit this, please just let me know. Specifically, what my project focused on was nutrition and healthy lifestyle. And what I was working with was younger students. So last year I was a McMaster scholar and I was working on a large spectrum. Well, this year, because we had so many ups and downs and we didn't know if we were going, I got a smaller age range. And so really what I'm going to show you today is because I was working with 3rd and 4th grade students, and in Panama, if kids are in 3rd and 4th grade, that means that they're kind of operating anywhere from a 2nd to 3rd grade level. They're about a year to 2 years below kind of what we're used to here in the States. So what I'm really going to show you is kind of a brief presentation of what I was showing them and what I intend to send down to Panama. So no different than what Rachel had said, because everything is virtual this year. We had to do everything on an online format. So this is a brief overview. And the big one here is teaching each student about the difference between fruits, vegetables, dairy, protein, grains, and oils. Originally, when I intended to go down to Panama with my project, I wanted to create a nutrition bracelet. And so if you've ever seen a form of like salvation bracelets that's really common in like Sunday schools, they have these bracelets that represent like a white bead represents being clean, green bead, all those things. And so what my project would have done is a red bead would have represented fruits, green vegetables, blue dairy, purple protein, and all the way through. And they would have received a bead for each portion of that specific item that they should have eaten within a day. So obviously, like fruits and vegetables would be the most beads that would be on there. So red and green, because they're what you need the most each day, along with like your dairy. And so protein and grains would be the less beads, and oil have the most. Again, because I said my project is really towards lower, like it's towards third and fourth graders, I wanted to make this PowerPoint itself like really bright, really fun, and also really interactive. Since we're sending this, I want students to be able to interact within the PowerPoint with questions they have. So I kind of gave a brief teaching overview, and then I would do kind of like a questioning game each time. So displaying that we want a rainbow of foods and showing that we want that multitude of colors on our plate each time we eat. So here, this is just to show you that my presentations are actually interactive. These PowerPoints are interactive for the students. So all they would do is say like, what category would these foods fall under? And they can say it to themselves, like, you know, I would say fish goes to proteins, pineapple goes to fruits, things like that. And then when I hit the next button, it would go ahead and move for each student so that they can see. So going all the way down the list, pineapple for fruit, pulled pork for protein, mango for fruit, rice goes to grain, and corn goes to vegetables. Then this is just going to explain exactly why it's important. So nutrition itself is very, very important to our body because it's what fuels our body. It's what allows us to get up in the morning. It's what makes us feel good versus not feeling good, those little things. So for example, just kind of what we talked about in our Kahoot, it prevents future heart disease. It also provides more energy and keeps your mind focused. And finally, it allows your muscles and bones to grow and develop. We also talked about that in that Kahoot, talking about those proteins, those amino acids, and things like that. This is just another interactive thing with the PowerPoint, talking about what foods would fuel your body. So in this, students would carry each individual food item over to which body would make them feel better. So banana to green, cookie over to the red, soda over to the red, bell pepper, and water over to green. So finally, the last part of my project was discussing what is a healthy lifestyle. This is another thing that is not commonly taught down there. So letting kids know that they need to exercise more, proper sleep to improve their overall brain function, not smoking or nowadays any form of drug or like vaporized nicotine. And finally, no alcohol consumption, especially since they're underage. And the project kind of would dive into, you know, why those things are not necessary or why it's important to obtain exercise or proper sleep versus the others. So this again is just kind of going through exercise, how much you should get each day, how much sleep, and why they're important, why they're bad, those kinds of things. And same as the other one, why do I care? Again, prevents future heart and organ failure, specifically your lungs. Down here, we talk about lung function. When you're looking into smoking and things like that, your tissue type changes every time a carcinogen or something other than oxygen enters into your lungs. And so better lung function is really improved as long as it's oxygen going in and not some outside force. Again, reduced risk of obesity with not only the nutrition aspect of the project, but also exercise. And this is just a demonstration of kids going through and deciding what's good for them.
So we used up our time pretty effectively, actually. Do you have any questions or advice or anything? I know you also run the mindfulness and meditation and everything, so this was kind of up your alley, I guess.
Really, all the things you had to say are just, it's good. I mean, good information, but I also like the way you present it in a real positive way. You know, this is how you get healthy, stay healthy, feel better, think better. I mean, instead of saying it's bad for you,
Yeah.
or I mean, you're really stressing the benefits, which is good. So
Thank you.
I
Really
appreciate that. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for attending as well.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank
My
you for
pleasure.
coming.
You're welcome.